45 BC, 3850 AM. At the end of the year of confusion, the Roman Julian calendar began. Caesar ended his Egyptian campaign and returned to Rome, bringing Queen Cleopatra. This was purely to exhibit her in his triumph. This year was 1152 years after the start of the Chinese calendar in 1197 BC. This was 700 years after the Israelites were deported into Assyria, a people whose descendants would forever be Rome's mightiest enemies. This was 540 years after the fall of Judah in 585 BC. 1. The 48 Laws of Power. 44 BC, 3851 AM. As the forces of the Roman general Marc Antony besieged the army of Decimus Brutus at Mutina, a storm of shooting stars lit up the sky, and Pliny records that there appeared a second sun with their own. Caesar had instituted many legal reforms, strengthened the empire, but his adversaries were many, and they claimed he strengthened the empire at the expense of the Republic, his rule being a tyranny. He had restructured the government, reformed the calendar, and was popular with the people due to an extraordinary military career of 50 battles. However, Caesar's civil war to gain the supremacy had cost the empire 1,192,000 lives in battle. Julius Caesar had a statue erected of himself with an inscription that read, "To the unconquerable God." This was done in the same year that a conspiracy against him was executed with success. Caesar made it known that he intended to follow the footsteps of Alexander the Great of Macedon. He was going to invade Parthia, but this revelation came just before his untimely death. Dio Cassius recorded that a comet then appeared. The comet lasted 7 days as Mount Etna also erupted. The sun grew dim for the remainder of the year, dust veil and volcanic ash, and crops were devastated. Virgil wrote that right before Caesar was killed, the sun was veiled in rust red. This sun darkening was also recorded by Pliny. Caesar was approached by many senators who then drew their daggers and all stabbed Caesar. 1. Pliny Natural History, Universe and the World. 2. Pliny Natural History, Zoology. 3. A Short History of the World. 4. The Lost Treasure of King Juba. 5. Caesar against the Celts, History in Quotations. 43 BC, 3852 AM. The second triumvirate is formed between the military rulers Marcus Antonius, Marc Antony, the famous lover of Cleopatra of Egypt, Marcus Lepidus, and Gaius Octavius, Octavian. These three contenders for supremacy would kill all hopes for the restoration of the Republic. Their rivals and political dissidents ruthlessly hunted down and assassinated. One of these victims was the famous and brilliant orator Cicero, Marcus Tullius Cicero, renowned as the most famous orator ever. His books and technique are still studied and taught today. Cicero had been a student of the Greek philosopher-historian Posidonius of Rhodes, who had documented his studies on the Celts. Cicero also theorized that there existed another continent over the Atlantic. Cicero publicly voiced his desire for the restoration of the Republic. This year marked the birth of Ovid, author of Metamorphoses, and other works preserved from fragments of ancient cosmological writings. Ovid too would fall into political disfavour and suffer at the hands of a Roman emperor. A fiery comet was recorded to have appeared in the western sky. 1. The Greek Myths. 2. Pliny Natural History. 42 BC, 3853 AM. Agents of the triumvirate hunt down and kill Marcus Brutus and Gaius Cassius, the two principal assassins of Julius Caesar. Pliny records the appearance of a strange sun along with our own. This was probably the reflection of a disintegrating comet of the dying Sodom-Trojan apocalypse comet group. 1. Pliny Natural History, Universe and the World. 39 BC, 3856 AM. Rome's first public library was founded, called the Hall of the Goddess of Liberty, or Atrium Libertatis, founded by Asinius Pollio. The calendrics for this year bear out that something very important occurred in this year, somewhere in the world. The calendrics indicate that this event would have transpired outside the boundaries of present Rome, or the lands inhabited by Israel's descendants. 38 BC, 3857 AM. Rome invades and conquers Spain. King Herod of Idumea feared the Jewish Hasmoneans because they were allied to Parthians in the east, a people partially descended from Israelites that he had fought against in 40 BC. Herod fled Jerusalem and went to Rome, where the Roman Senate declared him king of Judea. Herod left the Senate building with none other than Marc Antony, Roman ruler of the east, and Octavian, ruler of the west. Herod and Antony became close colleagues despite Cleopatra's intrigues against Herod, for she wanted Idumea to be under Egypt. The relationship between Herod of Idumea, Edom, and Rome is curious because the connection between Edom and Italy was ancient, going back to the days of Zepho, grandson of Esau, the enemy and hater of Jacob, Israel, 14 centuries earlier. 37 BC, 3858 AM. Herod of Idumea invades Judea and takes Jerusalem after a siege that lasted 5 months. Marc Antony had provided Herod a large Roman force to accomplish this. When the city fell, Herod executed 45 members of the Jewish Sanhedrin, destroying its influence. The Sanhedrin would not emerge again for 42 years, in AD 6. The last Jewish king, Antigonus, was sent to Marc Antony at Antioch and beheaded. Herod's reign, backed by Rome, is secure and the Hasmonean dynasty is finished. This year is 108 years to 70 AD, when the Romans will destroy Jerusalem, kill over 1 million Jews, and sell off over 90,000 of them as slaves. 1. The Bible fraud. 2. The Jesus Papers. 3. Secrets of Time. 31 BC, 3864 AM. The forces of Octavian from the Western Roman Empire defeated the forces of Marc Antony of the Eastern Roman Empire at the Battle of Actium. During this naval battle off the coast of Greece, there occurred an earthquake that killed 10,000 people initially, but resulted in 30,000 fatalities all told. Planet Phoenix entered the inner solar system at this time and nearly transited, but did not, completing its 138 years orbit and causing the earthquake, as it had done so many times before. Octavian became ruler of the whole Roman Empire, and Herod, who was formerly allied closely to Marc Antony, quickly came before Octavian without wearing his crown, humbly, gaining the affinity of Octavian. This was the 1224th year after the founding of the Danaan dynasty of Mycenae in 1255 BC, the 900th year of the divided kingdom since 931 BC. This was 5208 Anunnaki chronology, or 744 times 7, and 2208 years after the flood. While 31 BC and the near transit of Phoenix saw only an historic political change in the Mediterranean world, on the other side of the planet in the Yucatan, it brought the end of the Olmec civilization. The Olmec employed the long count calendar before the Maya inherited it. The last known date of the Olmeca was found on a date stela in the ruins of Tres Zapote on Stela Sea, a date equivalent to our 31 BC. The ruination that occurred throughout the Yucatan may have occurred just days, weeks or months after this inscription was made. 1. Josephus Antiquities, The Jewish War. 2. The Lost Realms, Strangers from Across the Sea, Sitchin.